All right.
Hmm.
Just came in. I'm just taking it every now and then. Just hear the just like, oh.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name's Grant. I'm a bookseller here at Politics and Prose, where we host a range of in-store events, trips, and classes. Before we get started today, I'd like to remind everyone to please silence your cell phones as to not disrupt the event. When we get time for the Q&A portion, we have a mic set up by this right pillar. Please speak clearly into the mic so that everyone can hear your question. In lieu of the signing line today, we will have bookmarks to give out at the end. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Ben Mattlin, who was gracious enough to be Politics and Prose first hybrid event. Mattlin is a freelance writer and author of multiple books, including Unbound, Ghosts from a Reluctant Disability Activist, and Disability Pride, Passage from a Post-ADA World. A Harvard graduate, Mattlin has published essays in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Tribune, and Time. And he's been featured on NPR, Here and Now, Now This News, ABC's Primetime Live, CNN, E! Network, and independent radio stations across the US, Canada, and the UK. In his new book Unbound, Mattlin, in a series of essays, writes about his life with spinal muscular atrophy, and also charts his growth as a reluctant disability activist and public intellectual. Mattlin will be in conversation with Joel Michael Reynolds, a senior research scholar in the Kennedy Institute of Ethics, assistant professor of philosophy and disability studies, and director of the Disability Studies program at Georgetown University. Reynolds is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Philosophy of Disability, co-founder and co-editor of the book series Autism Studies in Disability, Ethics, and Society, and the president of the Society for Philosophy and Disability. Please join me in welcoming to Politics and Prose, Ben Mattlin and Joel Michael Reynolds.
Check, check. Hello. Oh, that was close. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here this evening. I believe this is the first time this P&P location has done a hybrid event. So let's begin with some accessibility housekeeping. If anything is going wrong, please, staff or whoever, or in the audience or online, please interrupt us, try and get our attention so we can solve the issue. And also, please feel free to use the space, obviously the virtual space, but also the physical space in whatever way you need to lay down, stem, move around, do whatever is best for you. I would like to begin also with a quick visual description of myself. I'm a white guy. I was going to say in my mid-30s. That is not true. A white guy who is almost 40 now, wearing shorts, which I really wouldn't be, but I run very warm and it's extremely humid in DC, so sorry about that. And a collared shirt, and I've got a bunch of tattoos and long hair that is also responding to the humidity. I am so excited today to talk with Ben Mattlin. This is an absolutely fantastic book, a collection of writings that he has produced for many, many years, writings that have appeared in top-line magazines, top-line newspapers all over. And the kind of picture you get from this book is one that I think is extremely powerful and one that absolutely everyone should read and listen to. This is not just a book about disability. This is a book about what it is to be human, what it is to love, what it is to strive and have purpose. And I was so honored to have the chance not only to read it, but today to get to talk with Ben. Every once in a while, I'm going to look back to see your facial response, Ben. I hope that's okay. In very poignant and powerful ways, Ben, you, among other things, you discuss the tension between seeing your disability as a mere fact about you versus seeing it as something that defines you and something that even you take pride in. And I want to read, I was especially moved by this piece called Are There No Wheelchairs in Heaven, which originally came out as a commentary in NPR's Morning Edition. And I want to read just a couple lines before asking my question. You write, "My disability is part of who I am. Why couldn't my friend's family value the disabled man he'd become? Content warning, there's a reference there to a friend who had committed suicide. How limited is this vision of life and of the afterlife? Are there no wheelchairs in heaven? I'm not buying it. For me, if there is a heaven, it's not a place where I'll be able to walk. It's a place where it doesn't matter if you can't. Ben, can you talk a bit about what it means for disability to be an integral part of who you are and why there should be wheelchairs in heaven?
Sure. Thank you for that very complimentary introduction. I too want to briefly describe myself for those who maybe can't see so well. I'm an old white guy with short hair that is graying and not enough hair at that. I'm wearing glasses and a headset, microphone, a blue shirt, blue button shirt. In the background there's a black pillow and some copies of the book. To answer your question, actually, it's funny that you start with that because the original title of this collection was going to be, Are There No Wheelchairs in Heaven and Other Thoughts? That line, that question that popped in my head as I was about to click send on my email to NPR. And I think that was the original title for that piece. And the editor said, stick to that theme, but move it somewhere else. Anyway, people have quoted that back to me, and that's why I thought it would be a good title for the collection. But be that as it may, I was born with my disability, muscle weakness. So I've never walked, I've never stood. I've always used a wheelchair. I mean, after graduating from a baby carriage, right, which is basically a kind of wheelchair. Anyway, I remember as a kid, I think it was my big brother, who is not disabled, asking me just kind of, I don't know, imaginatively, what if there was an operation that could cure me? And when I thought about it, it kind of freaked me out. I didn't know who I would be, if I suddenly could walk and do things. I did not, I never fantasized about being able to walk. I may have, fantasized about being able to fly or turn invisible, but never to walk. And this essay came about at the funeral of a recent friend who was spinal cord injured. And he was what, maybe in his 30s, and he was having difficulty adjusting to being quadriplegic. I mean, understandably, a lot of people, it happens, people it happens to do have trouble adjusting. And I was, very surprised to hear he had died. I don't actually know for sure that it was suicide, but I suspected it, especially when I heard his family, the way they described him and their feelings about his disability. Basically saying he would be better off in heaven. He was an athletic guy and he hated being unable to do all the physical things he used to do, but boy, in heaven he could dance and play basketball, blah, blah, blah. And I got upset. I just thought, yeah, I mean, if that's the way they feel, if that helps them mourn, all right, whatever they have to do. But what a message. If people told me I would be better off dead than living with my disability, I'd laugh in their face. It was ridiculous. I've always felt that I'm fortunate in a way to have been born disabled. I've never known any different, it's normal for me. I haven't really had to adjust. I've had to adjust a little because my disability is progressive, very gradually. Every, I don't know, 10, 20 years, I get a little weaker, but it's something I'm used to. And I wouldn't want to be in a situation where I didn't have this familiar way of being. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response. And that
Yes,
ties
excuse me. Mm-hmm.
that ties, I think, quite well into one of the central themes, or one of the many central themes of the book, which is a critique of charity. You have an extremely
Yes.
compelling story, having been yourself on the posters for the Jerry's Kids and this sort of stuff, and then coming to find, take a very different perspective on this. And you say, this is on page 139, you say, participating in charity events enables people to think wrongly that they've done something important to right an injustice. So can you say more why, someone who might think unwittingly, not necessarily wanting to cause offense, well, of course, some people would not necessarily rather be dead than disabled, but they would rather be cured. What's wrong with charity? What's wrong with trying to help? Can you say a bit about why that sort of an approach is problematic? And also, what should people do, right? What is an appropriate attitude to take? And also for my accessibility, I'm going to move when I'm not asking a question so I can look at your face. So I can, yeah.
My face. I better make a good face. No, thank you, Joe. That's a good question. And that's actually was the first real advocacy essay I wrote, was opposing these charity telethons that use pity to raise money. If these fundraisers do any good for disabled people, and there have been questions about where the money really goes, But if they do any good, I believe it's nothing compared to the harm that's done from just perpetuating the stereotype of pity, of worthlessness of life with a disability. Yes, people mean well when they support these things. And not all charities are alike, but I would urge anybody who wants to be helpful to the disability community to, well, to do something else. To, if you don't want to physically get involved in helping people, and a lot of us need a lot of help. But there are nonprofit groups that need money that employ disabled people, that empower disabled people. Excuse me one sec. Here's some more. Throat is so dry. Thank you. Yeah, my criticism was really aimed at the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And this is kind of old business, but I actually got a phone call 25 years ago from a man who said he had been a chief social worker or something for MDA. He knew my name. My parents were involved in the charity. And he said that he had quit the organization because he got so turned off by the way funds were spent. First class airfare, deluxe accommodations for Jerry Lewis and the others. And a lot of the kids that were featured in fundraising were not well treated by Jerry Lewis. Today, some things are better, I think. Some things are not. I see ads on TV all the time for Shriners, hospitals for kids. And what I love is you got the recipients talking to you, not some charitable figure who is not disabled. It's the actual disabled kids. And what you see in the ads is, they'll help adapt a wheelchair so I can run around and play games. It's very specific, real stuff. It's not about curing. It's not about doing away with disability. Well, that was the other part of your question. Yes, there are disabled people who would be glad to be cured. And that's fine. I understand that. But I think even, I hope those people would say that's not the only thing. Meanwhile, we have to live with our disabilities. And equal effort should go to making disabled life better. If a cure comes along, well, that's great. But meanwhile, there are a lot of ways to make our present reality better, more worthwhile. We had a long, rambling answer.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I love that response, and it hits on two things that are also themes in your book. One being the importance and the history of activism by disabled people, often fighting against things like cure, often fighting for just basic respect, and also the relationship that has to questions of representation. So not just activism, but also the narratives and stories that are told. And of course, as the title of your book gives away, you describe yourself more than once as a reluctant disability activist, which is a very provocative way of putting things. And later in the book, you write, deep down, I'm just not an in-your-face type of guy. I'm a spinner of words. Can you share a bit about this reluctance? And can you especially share, given that we are right now living through the most intense attacks on disabled people, on support systems like Medicaid and Medicare, and also on disability rights, the most intense attacks we have seen in decades and decades. Has your relationship to activism shifted at all since, let's say, January?
Oh, interesting question. I never wanted to be an activist. I never meant to. And honestly, I'm not a very good activist. There are great activists out there who don't care who they piss off. And that's great. I've always been more of a communicator, a synthesizer, a bridge builder, let's say. But I've had to adjust that as well. In my life, I couldn't get a job after college. I would get hired to write things, and I wrote a lot on spec, but that got published, but nobody would hire me. Until, I should say, 3 years ago, at the age of 58, 59, I finally got my first full-time job. I'm no longer a freelance writer. I'm full-time on staff of Financial Advisor magazine. But when I was in my 20s and could not get hired, I couldn't rule out discrimination. People, as I said, liked my work, but they didn't want me around all the time. I'm a great beneficiary of the Zoom revolution for the pandemic. The job I have now is remote. The office is in New Jersey, and I'm in Los Angeles. It's great for me. Technology has been a huge, huge boon. I could not have written the books I've written without speech recognition software and that kind of stuff. So I've had to become more of an activist. And I, I drafted an essay in the last 6 months about the administration's attacks on disabled people. But there was so much. Every day there was something new. And there were so many other groups being attacked. I guess it was a little overwhelming. But yes, you're right. We really have to respond to what's going on. July is often called Disability Pride Month. And I think all of the celebrations have been tempered by an outrage. The need to protest the Medicaid cuts and so forth. Heck, I don't like the emphasis on getting workers to return to the office. As I say, some of us need remote work. It's vital. It's an accessibility modification for a lot of us. So I agree with what you said about becoming more outraged lately and needing to be a better activist. But I still could be better at it. I don't know. It's not. I've never been one for going on protest marches or shouting slogans. They're valuable things. They've just somehow never been a fit for my, for how I express myself. As you could probably tell by the way I'm talking, I'm better at writing.
Well, and I think one thing that is demonstrated by the book itself is how successful of a disability activist you have been. Your words have gotten out to thousands and thousands, if not millions of people over the years. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you have done, work that is so important and matters just as much and in different ways than getting out there on the streets.
Well,
How are we
thank
doing
you.
on time? Do I still got one more?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I have like only 12 more questions to get through. So no, I'll the two. Okay, I've got two more. Good. It's hard to pick. So this will be tightly related to the last question, but take a kind of different angle. Multiple pieces of yours, many of which are focusing on experiences you actively had in a healthcare context. They discuss the health disparities that disabled people face. And just for a general audience, in case people are not aware, on September 23rd, 8:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time of 2023, the National Institute of Health officially designated disabled people as a health disparity population, right? And this means that there is a preponderance of data that the disparities in health that disabled people face, the facts about their mortality and morbidity, an independent partial cause of that is not how their bodies or minds are, it's how they're being treated. It's due to inequitable access, inequitable or unequal care, and these other things. You you touch on this and you write very powerfully about how we need to pay more attention to this. But as someone who also works and thinks in this space, it's very easy to be losing hope, especially at this particular moment when so much research, specifically trying to deal with health disparities, we have now lost federal funding for. And so I'm just wondering, given your experiences as someone who both articulates and makes very clear how a kind of social model of disability, focusing on accessibility, access to technology you need, all of that is important. At the same time, as some more narrow, biomedical interventions are important, how do you think about these issues? And in some ways, the tension between a biomedical fix and a public health equity lens intervention.
Yes, you're right. I guess going back to your previous question a little bit, the areas where I think I am or can be the most effective activist are areas that I know personally. And it wouldn't be right for me to speak about other people's issues, other populations, experiences of discrimination, ableism, or intersectional forms of oppression. So I only know what I've experienced. And I am a privileged, cisgender, hetero, white guy. And even so, surprise, I have faced a lot of very scary forms of, obstacles, let's say, in healthcare, among other things. I don't know if this counts exactly, but about a year ago, I was in the hospital for a week. I had an abscess that was infected and had to be drained. On the second day in the hospital, I was lying in bed. My wife had stayed with me pretty much round the clock, but it was early in the morning, and she stepped out of the room just to get a cup of coffee. And at that moment, two hospital employees came in, said something about checking my body for bed sores, and started moving parts of me, looking behind my ankles, my knees, behind my ears. And they abruptly sat me up in the hospital bed to check my back. But my neck is very weak. I have no muscles, and my head flops over. So they pushed my head forward when they sat me up, and I couldn't breathe. They had squashed my, whatever it's called, my air pipe in my neck. And I couldn't talk because my chin was pressed up against the roof of my mouth. Well, they laid me back, and I was trying to catch my breath when they abruptly rolled me over in such a way. Excuse me. They rolled me over such that I could not breathe. And all I could do was sort of grunt uh, uh, uh. And they heard me. One of them said, kind of dismissively, don't worry, we'll be done soon. Well, that didn't do me any good. I passed out. Um, I was, what do they call it? Code blue. Uh, my wife was downstairs at the cafeteria. He was over the PA. There's a code blue in room, whatever it was, comes rushing up to me because she knows, she's guessed what's happening. It's not that unusual, really. There was an issue with security because she didn't have her badge. It was from the previous day, so they updated her pass. She rushed upstairs. There was a crowd outside our room, and they wouldn't let her through at first. But she insisted. She came over. She pulled my head back into the right position, and I woke up. And she knew she had to suction my trach. I have a mini trach in my throat, which I think maybe you can see, and had to be suctioned, which we do at home every now and then. There was a plug of mucus I couldn't breathe around, suction, yanked it out, and I was fine. But I could have died. After I collected myself, I sort of laughed, and I thought, boy, I must have scared those two, whatever they were, that were checking me for pressure wounds. I hope they learned something, but probably not. Now, it's impossible to train medical staff for every type of disability, body type, sensitivity, and so forth. But I really wish someone had at least trained them to listen to the patient. If somebody is complaining, stop what you're doing. I was lucky, and in a way that's a small case, because there are examples. There was a case in Texas during the pandemic of a man who died in the hospital. And his widow said that there's a recording of it on YouTube. You can hear it yourself. She said, maybe my husband didn't get the best care because we're Black, but I think mostly it was because he was disabled. He was paraplegic, I think, and as we know, a lot of disabled folks during the worst of COVID were denied a full measure of care because their lives were considered not as worth saving, I guess. Scarce resources went to younger, healthier folks. That's not okay. So when I have advocated through my writing uh, against healthcare disparities, maybe it's selfish, but it's because I've experienced it. It matters to me. The life I'm saving may be my own.
Thank you so much for that response. For time, we're going to now move to questions from the audience. Though I will say
Great.
my last question was about marriage and romance, and there's some fantastic stories about you and your wife. So I'll just leave that as a teaser that everyone should check out those sections. So let's turn to
Super.
the audience.
Hi, Ben. I have spinal muscular atrophy too, so I'm
Super.
very excited to be here tonight. I knew I had to get your book when I saw the chapter entitled No Straws, which I have also been given that medical advice and promptly ignored, but it's become a running joke in the family. Um, I wanted to ask you about how you balance what I think is kind of two ends of the spectrum that are hard to put together. So on the one hand, you have people like the family of your friend at the funeral who just can't imagine why your life is even worth living and think that you would be better off dead.
Mhm.
But then on the other hand, you'll have, at least I will have people, kind of try to shush me up when I talk about things that are hard in my life and say things like, well, you just have to stay positive. And why do you have to talk about all these negative things all the
Oh,
time?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's easy to get mad at both of those people, but it sometimes feels kind of difficult in my own life of how do I maintain disability pride and joy in my own life, but also give myself space to grieve. What's hard? How do you handle that?
Yes, you're right. You're right. What was the phrase? Somebody said to me once, like toxic positivity, something like that. Uh, I I do think a lot of disabled people. This kind of goes back to the poster child idea. Uh, I think a lot of disabled folks feel like they have to smile a lot, uh, uh, inspire people. We don't want to be inspirational, but then again, that's sort of the only way to get by. Like society often seems to only value disabled people if we're inspiring them. Uh, I'm sure I've done it myself, at least when I was younger. Uh, and yeah, you would hear my family say, "Oh, he never complained, never felt sorry for himself." I had to actually face that, I think, when I first started writing about my disability experiences and about my advocacy pieces, because I think that was the first time uh, that my family saw that, that I had issues, that I wasn't always a happy camper. Uh, that disability pride concept is a sort of another issue that can be complicated. Uh, there are disabled people who say, how can I be proud of the things I can't do, or I have chronic pain or whatever, and I want to get rid of it. Uh, there's nothing wrong with that, certainly. But it doesn't mean, well, just because there are aspects of disabled life that we would rather not have to deal with, doesn't mean we necessarily want to scrap the whole thing. And for me, well, look, here I am talking to you. I'm lying down. I'm in bed. I hated to do that when I thought about this. I wanted to be sitting up in my wheelchair, wearing, I don't know, something fancy and looking very impressive. But I've had some health issues lately, and this is what I have to do, to lie down, to feel comfortable. And I realized, well, that's an example of disability pride, not being embarrassed to do what you've got to do to feel comfortable. And I think there's another aspect too, and I know I'm talking too much, but I think when you realize how common disabilities and chronic health conditions are in the population, how many types and varieties there are, you feel a little less weird, a little less stigmatized. It really is, a normal thing. And why should we expect to live a life without any limitations? That's just not realistic. So I think sometimes that helps me to sort of universalize the experience. A lot of people cope with a lot of things. And anybody can understand, should understand, if we say, that really pisses me off.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the question.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? We're not able to get questions from the YouTube audience, are we?
Yeah, I'm actually checking.
You're checking? Okay,
I put a message out, so.
sounds good. Oh, here we got someone.
It's.
Wait, sorry, 1 second. You don't. Just wait, thank you.
It's too loud. Sorry.
You have to use both. One
Oh,
is
you have to
for
use
so he
both.
can hear, and one is for the room. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi there. Okay. Thank you very much for your talk. I was just going to comment that over the past few years, I've spent a lot of time in hospitals and with elderly. And I will say that it is not the treatment that you receive is not just, it's shared among other people, including myself. I don't think they train people, well enough. And definitely, I think it would be great if some of the staff working in hospitals and working with people that have needs, that they actually spend a day in a wheelchair, spend a day not using your arms, spend a day, so you really feel it, because they don't know, and it's innocent enough, but they could have killed you,
Yes,
I mean, it's
yes.
inexcusable, really. So the other comment I was going to make was that I've worked most of my life in group homes with adults with developmental disabilities.
Mm,
And a lot of the, it's called person-centered planning, trying to find out what the person really wants with their life. And one of the biggest barriers to that was not the staff so much as their families. And people, you talk about your role, like what would I be like if I no longer was me, and I think some of the parents really feel threatened by their children or their family member being more independent, because they have so many fears. Like what will happen if they take the bus? What will happen if,
yes.
and so that's that it just came to my mind that I was wondering what role your family and how, have played in your life.
Yes, you're right. I've been very fortunate that my family had the emotional and financial wherewithal to always to give me a pretty good life, to expect from me what they expected from my non-disabled big brother. I mean, it wasn't quite true that I could do anything and be anything I wanted when I grew up. But I had a bit of a shock growing up and realizing that there, were obstacles, employment and so forth. But I basically just always expected that I would have the same things that anybody else could have. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't. I have met other folks who grew up with their disabilities, as I have, and, whose parents said to them, "You're never going to get married. You're never going to be able to live apart from me." And, what a horrible message to tell a young person. It becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. I was very lucky. It's also true, like in terms of activism, we were talking about before, that a lot of organizations, charities, and so forth are run by and or for parents of disabled young people. And they can be the worst, I think. And I won't name names, but there are some nonprofits that are known to sort of be that way and not to empower the actual disabled people themselves. You can tell the difference, I think. I mean, organizations that really are, that employ disabled folks, give them power, they do far better job of addressing what people need than these parent-centered groups, which is too bad. Parents don't know what to do. I know it's hard for parents of disabled kids. I just wish more of them would listen to disabled adults about what the kids need.
Well, thank you so much. Everybody go buy Unbound, Notes from a Reluctant Disability Activist. It was such an honor to chat with you, Ben. Yeah, thank you for writing this. Thank you for being amazing as a human being and for the work that you have done to raise so many of these crucial issues to a wider audience.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you for your great questions and all the good work that you do too.
Thanks, Ben. And thanks to Politics and Prose for putting this on. Fantastic,
Yes.
fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Ben. Thank you so much for writing this and for joining us today. This will live on our YouTube channel, so you go ahead and share the link
Mhm.
and we do have books available at the registers, and I have a bookmark for each of you here tonight. So thank you all, and let's give Ben another round of applause.
Thank you. Been a pleasure. Are we still?